welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons and monsters and serpents. Two Brothers of the Serpent podcast coming to you not live from the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science, nestled amongst the frozen bones of an ancient seabed high atop the Everest Plateau. So we're doing this podcast late because Ice Age. A little ice age rolled through Texas. And it was quite the adventure. So things are just now, today, really starting to thaw out. But yeah, what did it start? I was down here.
I don't even remember. The days are running together.
I know, but I was down here Saturday, right? We were down here to work on music. That was when it started.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yep.
Yeah, so I was down here Saturday of last week. Kyle and I were going to work on music, and I was here we worked on music till like 11, and then we hung out and bullshitted and talked about pyramids and stuff until 3 in the morning. And I was like, well, I better go. And I couldn't get back up the hill.
Yeah, you sent me a text like, well, my car's on the side of the hill almost falling off the edge. And I hope it doesn't slide when I close the door.
That's right.
I think it was Voxer or something.
Yeah, I called you. I was like, yep, almost died.
Rare occasion.
Yeah.
Russ calls me.
So then I had to walk the rest of the way, uphill both ways in the snow, you know, that kind of thing. But it was...
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, somehow our driveway is uphill both ways. But yeah, I made it to the slope of the first hill and started going up, and the driveway curved sharply in the middle of the steep slope. And I got right about to the curve, and the car stopped moving forward and started sliding backwards. And it just barely stopped before going over the edge.
And there it stayed.
That's right.
For like days and days.
Yeah, I had to leave it there. And it kept icing that night, and temperatures dropped, and then the next day it didn't rise above freezing, which is rare for Texas. We do get freezing nights, but...
At least here.
Yeah, we do get freezing nights, but rarely does it stay below freezing all day after that. So the ice stayed, and then we got a sleet and snowstorm, and that coated everything, and so the driveway basically became impassable by anything.
Built a sled out of some old poly pipe.
Oh, yeah.
And a piece of plywood. Sent Soul gliding down the hill.
Yeah, I saw that video, yeah. Yeah. I hiked down to check the car to make sure the wind hadn't blown it off the hill. It was still there. And then the power went out. It flickered for days, on and off, on and off. And then it went out and stayed out for like 25 hours. So, pipes froze.
And then I realized I am not prepared for freezing weather with no power.
Yeah. You don't have a fireplace in your house.
Don't have a fireplace. Don't have gas.
Yeah.
That was not good. But we had some neighbors right down the street called us and were like, are you guys okay? I parked my truck. I drove my truck around the backside of my house and got it close enough to the sliding glass door where the cat door is. And ran an extension cord from my truck into the house and ran a heat lamp. I tried the heaters and it wouldn't power the heaters.
Yeah.
And so then I got the heat lamp.
Yep.
That we used to use for the Tangent Cube before we got the super awesome climate change in here.
That's right.
And yeah, the family slept under the heat lamp that night. And then our neighbors called us in the morning like, are you guys cold? And we were like, yes. So we went over there and we stayed there for
2
3 days.
2 or 3 days.
2 nights and 3 days.
Yeah.
The power came back on, but we couldn't get any information from the power company, like what is the deal? And
yeah, is it going to go back off?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got the new baby, and Laura was just like, I don't know. They were telling us, just stay, so we just stayed.
Yeah.
And I was making runs back and forth.
Yeah.
Feeding the cats, checking on things.
Yeah. Yeah, and we were stuck at the top. Basically, the driveway became pretty much impassable, and then with no power and we had no water, we filled up tubs and stuff beforehand, so we did have water, but no running water. So for basically the whole week, we've been living off of the water in the tub. And now
and the memes have been great.
Yeah.
Like, sharing the memes with everybody. It's like it snows in Texas and we're
yeah.
just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
It's like, oh.
Yeah, I know. People are like, what's the deal with tech? I'm like, well, we don't have plows. We don't have salt. We don't have sand. We don't have the vehicles that disperse that stuff onto the road. We don't have tire chains. None of us have.
The electrical grid is not.
Yeah, none of it is.
None of it's built for this.
Our
kind of
plumbing isn't designed for it. It just,
Yeah.
you just don't. It's just not built for this. We don't have to build for it usually, but maybe that will change. I mean, I know
Maybe
that
that is changing. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it is changing. I know that newer houses have different kinds of plumbing to keep from freezing. There's like, what is that stuff called? The PEX?
The PEX, yeah.
Yeah, PEX pipe. But our house...
That's what all the new stuff, yeah.
Yeah, our house is built with older PVC and CPVC, and it just split, And and Dad and I were kicking ourselves because we didn't think, and even though we knew, it's going to go down to like 9 degrees, which is... I mean, even that, I've lived in Vermont and in Wyoming. It's like 9 degrees. You're like, yeah, okay, that's like
we were out snowboarding
it's like
in
a fall day.
14 or something.
Yeah, exactly. But still, it's like the house is the roof is all vented for heat, right? It's designed to get rid of heat.
And it did.
That's right.
It got rid of the heat.
It got rid of the heat, and the pipes froze. So we should have known, and we should have turned off the pump at the well and drained the system, and we didn't do that.
Which is what I did.
Right, you did it. Yeah. But Dad and I didn't even think of it. We were just like, keep them dripping and it'll be fine. No. It got too cold even with all of the faucets running. So now we have burst pipes. Hopefully there's no burst ones in the tower. Yeah. But I was still awake when I realized that I could no longer hear the dripping.
That's why you need to run vodka through your pipes.
Yeah.
It does not freeze.
It will not freeze, even in depths of Russian winter. So, yeah, we were going to do a show this week with Ben, but that got postponed, and then the postponement made him, got in the way of his schedule, and so he asked to postpone it to next week. So we're just doing a...
Shooting the breeze.
Yeah,
show.
shooting the breeze. We got articles and emails, and, we're just going to talk about whatever.
Yeah, so start your workout next show.
Next show. And now, let's go ahead and do Space Weather News, no matter what mood you're in.
Because Space Weather News tells you everything about the weather in space.
In space. From spaceweather.com, geomagnetic storm warning. A solar wind stream is approaching Earth. It could cause a minor G1 class geomagnetic storm when it hits Earth's magnetic field on February 21st. The gaseous material is flowing faster than 500 kilometers per second from an equatorial hole in the sun's atmosphere. So there are aurora alerts. Also, a mystery in the sky. The ground was covered in snow and trees clothed in frost. The air was filled with floating, swirling crystals of ice, and that was the situation last week in Wisconsin when dawn broke and a magnificent display of sun halos appeared in Wiwid Paramita's backyard. I took this picture using my iPhone, says Paramita. It was a cold and beautiful morning. We've all seen luminous arcs, rings, and dogs around the sun on cold days. They appear when sunlight shines through airborne ice crystals. But this was no ordinary display. It contains a big mystery. The V in the middle of the picture is a Moilanen arc, named after its discoverer, halo expert Jarmo Moilanen of Finland. And no one can figure this out. Computer simulations show that it might be formed by ice crystals with faces sloping at an unusual angle of 34 degrees. But experts in Finland have sampled ice crystals whenever they have seen this arc, and so far they can find no traces of crystals with these required edges.
That's a really cool picture.
Yeah, how and what forms it is one of the halo world's biggest mysteries, says atmospheric optics expert Les Cowley. But yeah, so the photograph, if you want to check it out, you can go to spaceweather.com, but it's a snowy field and the sun is coming up and there's a big ring around the sun. But there's also a line of light going upwards from the sun towards the top of the ring, and before it reaches the ring, there's this weird V shape. And that's what they're talking about. You see it right there? There's a V shape in that. Yeah. So strange things are afoot. And current conditions, solar wind speed is 482.8 kilometers per second. Density is 8.6 protons per cubic centimeter. 12 sunspots right now. Let's see. Neutron count today is 7.9% above the space age average. And KP index is 4, which they rate as unsettled. That's also the 24-hour max. Oh, yeah, and I forgot. We forgot last week, actually, that it was your birthday when we were
that's right.
podcasting with Marty. That was like the day of Kyle's birthday, and we completely forgot
After
about
midnight it was.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. February 12th.
Yeah. So happy birthday, buddy.
Thanks, man. Thank you. And yeah, I have to say, the only way to provide a weather report on a global show is space weather.
That's right.
It's relevant to everyone and no one at the same time.
That's right. One day we'll know what it means. We still haven't quite figured it out yet.
It does come up in interesting places during conversations.
Yeah.
You're like, well, actually, right now the sun's doing this, and actually for the past 6 months, it's been slowly doing this and that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that kind of makes sense because the proton count has been pretty high recently.
Exactly. Yeah. So I've got a story here from one of my favorite lovable scriptard sites, fizz.org. And it's somewhat relevant.
Fizz.skirp.
That's right.
So we need a new what is it called?
I don't know what they call it. A suffix?
The .com, the .net. We need the .skirp.
Earth's magnetic field broke down 42,000 years ago and caused massive sudden climate change. The world experienced a few centuries of apocalyptic conditions 42,000 years ago, triggered by a reversal of the Earth's magnetic poles combined with changes in the sun's behavior. That's the key finding in a new multidisciplinary study published by Science. This last major geomagnetic reversal triggered a series of dramatic events that have far-reaching consequences for our planet. They read like the plot of a horror movie. The ozone layer was destroyed. Electrical storms raged across the tropics. Solar winds generated spectacular light shows, auroras. Arctic air poured across North America. Ice sheets and glaciers surged and weather patterns shifted violently. During these events, life on Earth was exposed to intensified ultraviolet light. Neanderthals and giant animals known as megafauna went extinct, while modern humans sought protection in caves. The magnetic North Pole, where a compass needle points to, does not have a permanent location. Instead, it usually wobbles around close to the geographic North Pole, the point around which the Earth spins, over time due to movements within the Earth's core. For reasons still not entirely clear, magnetic pole movements can sometimes be more extreme than a wobble. One of the most dramatic of these pole migrations took place some 42,000 years ago, and it is known as I guess it's a French term, Le Champs excursion. Or maybe it's Las Champs, but I'm gonna just say
Le Champ.
Yeah, there you go, Le Champs. A Le Champs excursion, Le Champs, named after the village where it was discovered in the French Massif Central. The Le Champs excursion has been recognized around the world, including most recently in Tasmania, Australia. But up until now, it has not been clear whether such magnetic changes had any impacts on climate and life on the planet. The new study...
Wait. I'm sorry. They just figured they're getting evidence about it from Tasmania? Is that what you just said?
Yes, because it's named after a place in the French Massif Central.
Yeah.
But
the latest evidence...
Yeah, I suppose it was a global thing.
Yeah.
And the Le Champs excursion has been recognized around the world, including most recently in Tasmania, Australia.
Yeah. So the latest evidence for it
has
been found in Tasmania.
Yes.
Shout out to Taz.
Yeah, what's up? It hasn't been clear up until now whether such magnetic changes had any impacts on climate and life on the planet. But the new study draws together multiple lines of evidence that strongly suggest the effects were indeed global and far-reaching. Ancient trees. To investigate what happened, the team analyzed ancient New Zealand kauri trees that had been preserved in peat bogs and other sediments for more than 40,000 years. Using the annual growth rings in the kauri trees, the team was able to create a detailed timescale of how Earth's atmosphere changed over this time. The trees revealed a prolonged spike in atmospheric radiocarbon levels caused by the collapse of Earth's magnetic field as the poles switched, providing a way of precisely linking widely geographically dispersed records. Quote, "The kauri trees are like the Rosetta Stone, helping us tie together records of environmental change in caves, ice cores, and peat bogs around the world." End quote. Using the newly created timescale, we were able to show that the tropical Pacific rain belts and the Southern Ocean westerly winds abruptly shifted at the same time, bringing arid conditions to places like Australia at the same time as a range of megafauna, including giant kangaroos and giant wombats, went extinct. Further north, the vast Laurentide ice sheet rapidly grew across the eastern U.S. and Canada, while in Europe, the Neanderthals spiraled into extinction.
And they're thinking that this is, okay, maybe they're not saying this, but it seemed like they might be implying that the higher UV was killing the hominids, because they were saying that humans sought refuges in Homo sapiens sought refuge in caves, and the Neanderthals died out.
Maybe. I think that they're implying that it was due to freezing, basically. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's like being being a microwave dinner. You're like,
yeah, there was
frozen and fried at the same time.
There was no shield.
Yeah,
the ozone layer collapsed and the magnetic field went away.
It's freezing cold, but you're also being burned by UV. Yeah.
So, let's see. And now they go into the climate modeling. Working with a computer program that simulated the global interactions between chemistry and the climate, we investigated the impact of a weaker magnetic field and changes in the sun's strength. Importantly, during the magnetic switch, the strength of the magnetic field plummeted to less than 6% of what it is today.
Yeah.
A compass back then would struggle to even find north. With essentially no magnetic field, our planet totally lost its very effective shield against cosmic radiation. And many more of these very penetrating particles from space could access the top of the atmosphere. On top of this, the sun experienced several grand solar minima throughout this period, during which the overall solar activity was generally much lower, but also more unstable, sending out numerous massive solar flares that allowed more powerful ionizing cosmic rays to reach Earth. Ding, ding, ding.
Yes.
Our models showed that this combination of factors had an amplifying effect. The high-energy cosmic rays from the galaxy and also enormous bursts of cosmic rays from solar flares were able to penetrate the upper atmosphere, charging the particles in the air and causing chemical changes that drove the loss of stratospheric ozone. The modeled chemistry climate simulations are consistent with the environmental shifts observed in many natural climate and environmental change archives. These conditions would have also extended the dazzling light shows of the auroras across the world. At times, night would have been as bright as daytime.
Yep.
I want to ring that bell so many times.
So many times. I agree.
We suggest the dramatic changes and unprecedented high UV levels caused early humans to seek shelter in caves, explaining the apparent sudden flowering of cave art across the world 42,000 years ago.
Yeah, so they were suggesting it was the UV. But you're probably right. It was cold as well.
Both, yeah. I mean, the extinction, yeah. Because, I mean...
But think about it. If the UV
you can shelter in a cave and still die because you can't get food.
Right. But if you walk outside during the day and the UV is high enough that that you get like really bad sunburn, you're going to know that you can't go outside during the day.
That's right, yeah.
And that's what it is like, imagine if you go out for an hour and you get a sunburn like you've been on the beach for a week with no sunscreen or whatever.
It must have seemed like the end of days.
Yeah.
And okay, so this next paragraph is called the Adams Event. Because of the coincidence of seemingly random cosmic events and the extreme environmental changes found around the world 42,000 years ago, we have called this period the Adams Event. ADAMS. A tribute to the great science fiction writer Douglas Adams, who wrote The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and identified 42 as the answer to life, the universe,
and everything. Of course.
Douglas Adams really was into something big. And the remaining mystery is, how did he know?
That's great.
Yeah. And let's see. This is by Chris Fogwill, Alan Hogg, Chris Turney, and Zoe Thomas. So I thought that was a great story. And, it's just, you can't help but, okay, you've pointed this out so many times. Well, do we really know what the, average cosmic rays that are hitting the Earth, is there a period where they could have been a lot more, a lot less that would significantly affect the dating? So that was one of the things. And then the other is the idea of nights without, basically periods of time with no nighttime or periods of time, those things are very, they're just in the ancient texts.
Right.
So maybe it's not this event in particular, but another
one similar. Yeah. I mean, a collapse of the magnetic field would be.
Yeah, you wouldn't. People that talk about this, you don't immediately think like, oh, well, there could be 3 days with no darkness.
Yeah. And strange shapes in the sky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just thought that's a great story. I'm glad they're doing research on that.
Yep.
And I think the Adams Event is an apt name.
Yeah.
More, aside from the Douglas Adams reference.
Right,
but.
yeah. Yeah, it was at the dawning of mankind, basically.
Exactly.
Because they do consider the cave art to be a sign of a huge change.
Yep.
And who knows, the magnetic field collapses, everything's being bombarded with weird radiation.
The other thing you can imagine, though, is that they had reached a certain level of technology at that time that their writings and works would not survive long periods of time.
Yeah.
Similar to ours,
Right.
So whatever, they get wiped out, and then you end up with cave art and other things showing up. But I don't know. It's just one of the things in world history where the Sumerians were using a stylus in clay.
Yeah.
We have all that stuff, and we know their stories.
Yeah.
And then they developed papyrus, and we
Don't have any of that. Yeah.
We have no idea what they were doing after that point.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah,
and when people start doing digital art, it's like...
Yeah, yeah. It's going to be gone.
It's going to be gone.
Yeah, and it also makes sense because a lot, people have been connecting a lot of the cave art, that Chauvet and those caves where the cave art is 40,000 years old or whatever. They've been connecting it, even though initially it's been considered, oh, this is classic butt flapper caveman drawings. There's the deer and there's the dude with the spear. Yeah. Well, a lot of it actually looks celestial. Yeah. Like Matheson would say, these are star myths written in these caves. And that, I mean, what if that's the birth of that? Strange figures are appearing in the sky, and you got weird auroras, and the whole world's changing, and they start making these stories about what's happening.
Yep.
Well, I got emails unless you have more.
Significant. Yeah, I do have a couple more stories. But I think we ought to get into them in more detail, and we're at 25 minutes, so we could just, I don't know.
Well, I got a real short email here from Douglas. He says, "Hello, Snake Bros. I think you are awesome. Cheers, Dougie.
Dougie. Thank you, Dougie.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dougie.
Okay, and this one is longer.
Go for it.
Yeah, this one's from Patrick, who is Schlepidus in the Discord, he says. Dear Russ and Kyle, my path to your podcast was via my brother, who recommended it last spring after we were talking about the Commander Fravor interview on Joe Rogan and other UFO, or UFV now, I guess, shenanigans. I've been a regular listener since. We're in another lockdown here in Quebec for who knows how long, and I really look forward to these podcasts as they are reversible portals into your universe.
That's cool.
Why I listen. I am a mainstream science-trained professional, but have always appreciated the value of asking questions and being able to keep. Yes, even on what science considers 100% confirmed, don't mess with it or you'll break it topics. Biology and astrophysics, I'm looking at you. Our understanding of the material reality and the infinity of knowledge out there is really just getting started. It is very exciting, and we should rejoice in understanding what we don't know as much as what we think we know. While current events are not very encouraging, I am very optimistic about the future. I think our species is destined for great things, seeing as how we are so naturally predisposed to cooperate, explore, and share knowledge with one another. Snakes, strong together. On the topic of community, I consider myself part of the Laugh Gang, so please do keep laughing on the podcast, even uncontrollable fits of 30-second lengths or more. I also listen to the podcast while working out, but I understand that is a point of controversy within the Snake Force, so I will not expand on this. So you're not the workout guy, I guess.
Okay, yeah.
In any case, I just finished listening to my 100th episode, and I wanted to thank you for the great content and the warm, snakely vibes. My brother and I have scraped our fuel reserves and sent a little green energy converted from Canadian to U.S. frequencies to help with the server refurbishments and the hatchery paraphernalia, such as snake diapers, like a roll of cloth tape around the snake butt, snake wipes, and other snake baby necessities, not snake oil, though. All of our love to the newly hatched Lila May, hope the spelling is correct, and the family. Please let us know if you're coming to Eastern Canada in the years to come. Keep learning and teaching. Sincerely, Schlepidus on the Discord. P.S. I hope to get started on the Hell Devil location names, crowdsource shenanigans this summer. I am currently delayed by my day job and 2 adorable little snakes. PPS, obligatory 60 seconds, low effort meme attached.
Low effort memes. SpongeBob SquarePants.
SpongeBob SquarePants. How people see mainstream science. He's like all dressed up, and he's like, "Oh yes, and then how it actually is, and he's like a caveman. The title, he says, erratum, the title should have read "Thank you." Also, I wanted to say, Kyle, I love your music. It's beautiful stuff, man. Would love to hear more.
Wow, thank you.
Much love.
Yeah. One of my fuzzies.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. More is coming on the music front
Yeah.
as soon as we can thaw out a little bit.
And yeah, I really appreciate that, man. You're mainstream science trained, but you dig the podcast, you like the laughing, and you work out while you listen to it.
Yeah,
No
looking
complaints.
into the UFOs.
Yeah, looking into the UFOs.
And
That
yeah,
is-
those episodes,
yeah,
as I've said multiple times.
Huge
throughout-
props to Marty.
Yeah, big props to Marty. It is mind bending.
Yeah.
for sure. Especially for me, I haven't looked into it much. I kind of I don't doubt that there are encounters or that there are aliens or that it's one of those things that I've always kind of avoided because I'm like, well,
What am I going to do with these stories?
I can go read a bunch of accounts, but I don't know what
It's
to
like
do
the
with it.
411 stuff. You don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, so and it's the same with that. It's like I don't doubt that there could possibly be something really strange going on.
Yeah.
But anyway, the way Marty's delivery, his arrangement of the topics, the categories of topics,
Yep.
is really it's really good.
Yeah.
So
I really liked where you took the last show. We dove into like normal, sort of nuts and boltsy kind of stuff, and then we went Skinwalker Ranch.
yes,
Which is like really weird. And then we go to the daimonic reality after that and start talking about, like, could these people be described, like all this daimon stuff and everything was his effort to say, are these people back then describing what we're seeing now?
Yes. And then I went full ancient alien.
That's right.
I was like, okay, bro. All of these ancient texts are telling us about
That's right.
UFOs.
All right, let's take a break. We'll come back and do more emails, more stories, and snakes!
Fastest 2 hours in podcasting, especially when we're winging it here on Brothers of the Serpent podcast. And you have to say that with a particular slur. Brothers of the Serpent.
Brothers of the Serpent. Digging it. All right, so
on with the emails.
Yeah, we got more emails here. This one's from Paul, called Serapent. He says, "Hello, Snake Bros. Congrats on the new Snake Daughter. I hope you liked the jam and apple butter."
Oh, man. Heck yeah. It was called Snake Jam.
Snake Jam.
If you're not aware.
That's right.
It was very good. Thank you.
I have a quick suggestion about the boxes in the Serapent. I think this theory was brought to me by Matt from Ancient Architects. Could the boxes have been giant fermentation vessels? The fermentation process would create pressure contained by the heavy lids and would start to affect the quartz in the granite. It would then cause a piezoelectric reaction that might allow for the transmission of electricity. I believe there are photos that show weights on top of the lids which would increase the pressure. It's just a thought. You can watch the vid on YouTube, but look out because Matt has recently become mainstream Matt. Snakes! Oh, and by the way, you can say the name of my business if you want. Haslinger Orchards. When talking about the jam I sent, I'm not trying to get free advertising. I'm just curious about how many fellow snakes are in my area. Paul from Northwest Ohio.
Haslinger Orchards.
Yeah.
Yeah, go check them out. Man.
Yeah, I don't know about them being fermentation vessels.
I'm a huge scriptard on that one.
It seems like a lot of work when you could just
I
use
mean,
a barrel.
there are, they make those huge amphora. But I think working that clay and firing that clay is much easier than cutting the stone. But maybe cutting the stone was so easy.
Yeah.
Why would they want all these different types of granite? I know that vineyards talk about the granite. They talk about the types of rocks, but that has to do with the
grapes growing.
Yeah, it has to do with the the chemical nature of the soil due to the rocks and other things. They make concrete containers for aging vessels for the wine. It does breathe. I don't know that granite breathes.
At least
but yeah,
not granite that thick.
It's the precision that gets me. But again, you have a point in that. I mean, if you think about it in terms of, what is a civilization capable of? Chris Dunn points this out, that so much of the things that we use today don't need to be as precise as they are, but it's the nature of our equipment that makes them.
That's right.
And so they all come out looking and being exactly the same.
Yeah.
Now, there's definitely a necessity for that in things like car engines and, these precision machines.
Yeah.
That and the thing about the precision is that parts are interchangeable. You could custom make a car engine, completely, but the part would have to be then custom made to fit that single cylinder.
Yeah.
If it was all,
you must hand whittle the tires.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So the precision process makes it much easier to make interchangeable parts. Interchangeable parts not so necessary with an aging vessel, and of course they're not precise on the outside, which is I don't know.
And it's also, it just seems strange. Like, for example, that there's unfinished boxes laying around in there. It's like, was somebody building a... But of course, he goes on to suggest that the fermentation process generated electricity by putting pressure on the boxes.
Oh, okay.
You know, so it's not just to ferment things, but that's the thing is, like, you need vibration to generate piezoelectricity. You can't just have pressure. You can put stress on a crystal, but if you don't release the stress and then put it back on it and release it and put it back on it, you don't get piezoelectricity. It's the change in stress that causes it. Right?
I think that there is a...
I mean, can you just like put stress on it and it'll just generate electricity? Don't you have to vibrate it basically?
I think it will, but it's still having other stresses put on it. Like you put it into and I could be wrong on this, but I know they have these, they're really small. I think they call them step generators. I've talked about this before, but I don't remember the exact terminology. But yeah, they get the crystalline matrix, and it's under stress, and so it's constantly putting out a voltage. But I don't know that it may be on like a very, say, high frequency level. In other words, really, really small vibrations that are coming from the environment.
Yeah.
That continue to put the stress to move it around. I don't know. But yeah, it doesn't seem right that you could just put stress on a crystal and have a continuous voltage forever.
Yeah, like you can't just set a weight on it or something.
Unless it's something atomic going on that is due to the motion of the atoms.
Yeah, so I guess liquid under pressure has Brownian motion, but
yeah.
I don't know if that would generate a lot of electricity.
I think that's what they utilize in terms of piezoelectric generators. They're really small scale generators, and it's a tiny amount of voltage.
Okay.
And I don't think it's used for load bearing things. It's more of a signal type of thing.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know what they were for, but it doesn't seem like the ideas of them being boxes to hold stuff. I don't know. I just don't know. I mean, yeah, you could build a box like that and put books in it or seeds or medical equipment or whatever, you know, all the stuff that people have suggested to us through email. And they're all great suggestions. No one knows.
I know. I saw a discussion in the Discord about this, the idea of how I was comparing it to the winery. I wasn't comparing it to the winery per se. I was comparing it to the lab, that we do have vessels that you need like a very precise
interior volume.
But yeah, and it was a volumetric flask, but those are not, they don't have like from one object to the next, the actual shape of the object, the interior space of the entire object does not matter. It's all about where that one line is carved into or etched into the glass on the narrow tube at the top to tell you, here's the very precise amount.
Yeah, that's right.
And so you have a headspace. It's very small.
Yeah.
It's not very much in the volumetric flask, but each flask is different. If you lined them all up, those little etched lines are at different heights.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my point was not to say that this has anything to do with wine. It was just that, hey, like I'm dealing with these things, and the only thing I can think of is that you would need this very precise interior with zero headspace. That could be one reason, because with a volumetric flask, you've got a headspace in there. If you needed it to be completely full of a very precise amount of something with no room left over, that would perhaps be a reason for the precision, but it could have been scooped out roughly. You could have reached in and carved a tiny little pocket into the edge of the stone to make it a little bit more.
Yeah.
It didn't need to be flat.
Right.
So it was kind of misleading, I guess.
Well, I think what your point was when you were bringing those up if I remember, is you were saying that they look like containers, but they're not designed to contain stuff.
Yeah, they're not designed as a container per
Yeah.
se, but a precision inner space.
Yeah, that's right. What they're really for is a precision interior volume.
That's right.
As opposed to a container.
And that's why I'm really curious about the exact interior volume from one vessel to the next.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe we could scan it with LiDAR.
Yep.
That would be good.
That would do it.
And the ones that you can't get into, you can stick the iPhone down in there and scan it with LiDAR.
Scan it with LiDAR.
I don't know how precise it is, but yeah, I don't know. It's an enigma.
Yeah. Okay. This is from the Dan Man.
Dan Man.
That's his name on the Discord. He says, "Dear Serpent's sires, as I sit here listening to your latest episode on the Shamir, I can't help but imagine a salesman of the same caliber as the ShamWow guy selling the Shamir on some street corner in Jerusalem, roping in King Solomon with his fantastic view and new and improved Shamir. This thing can cut stone, it can polish stone, it can move stone. I got it in worm form, I got it in leaf form, both blue and otherwise. But wait, there's more. Buy now and get imbued with the ability to talk to birds, only 5 easy payments of 12 shekels each. Sold. Ha! Loving the podcast. I have been going through the book reports you have been doing with the Giza power plant and find that incredibly fascinating as well. I also really enjoyed your episodes with Marty, hoping for a part 4. Hey, you got it. Aliens and the UFO phenomenon has always interested me. I shared an interview with a reptilian on the Discord a while back. I thought it was an interesting thought experiment about having a civilization pre-mammal. Also, I live about 5 miles from the something of St. Croix and hike Interstate Park frequently. If you ever want some snaky science done with those potholes, I would be more than willing to help. Respectfully yours, the Dan Man." Oh, P.S. Not sure how this slipped my mind, but snakes! Also, congrats on the newborn Kyle and snake wife Laura. Snakes! Again.
Thank you, buddy. Yeah, that reminds me of Kamak's painkiller.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that? When he was shrub jumping?
Yeah.
He's like, dude, they need to have a painkiller. It's called Make It Go Away. Make it go away. Just take one every minute for the next 5 days, and it'll make it go away.
Make it go away. Sounds like a great painkiller. Okay. Let's see. This is from Nathan. He says, "Hey guys, not sure if you guys have heard of Penny Royal, but it's a podcast about a strange mystery we uncovered here in Kentucky, which we've been digging into and researching for the last couple of years. I won't go into all the details, but it led us to uncover some pretty interesting things about this region, i.e. the Kentucky anomaly, as NASA refers to it, the largest spike of geomagnetic energy in the Western Hemisphere. We've also discovered a number of connections to esoteric groups practicing ceremonial magic here in Somerset since at least as far back as the 1970s, but probably a lot longer. And connections to a man referred to as Mr. X, who is most likely a former Nazi intelligence officer tied to a host of criminal and clandestine activity in the 50s and 60s, who ended up here in Somerset in the 1970s, owning a mine that's at the center of the mystery. Lots of high strangeness. I started listening to your show back in November when you had Soraya on to talk about his mechanism. He and I had a discussion about his theory on his show and compared notes as to what we thought might be happening and how things are connected. Anyway, if there's ever room in your schedule and you guys are interested, I'd love to come on your show and chat about Penny Royal. Everything you've been chasing down on your show is right in the thick of what we have been digging into. Thanks so much. Hope you guys are doing well and keep cranking out those great episodes. Best, Nathan."
Man, that sounds cool.
Yeah, sounds like a...
I think it's pronounced Penny Royale.
Could be, yeah.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, that sounds interesting.
Yep.
For sure.
I mean, if it's got a mine in it, it's probably interesting.
Yep.
If somebody's been digging up ancient shit deep under the ground.
And magnets. I mean,
Yeah.
Is there mercury involved?
Yeah,
And then we'll
spinning
get the
mercury
watcher digging into this too.
Yeah. There's probably a blender in there somewhere. And this is from the stash. From the snake stash. It's called The Watcher Made Me Miss My Exit from the stash. Dear Snake Sons and Watcher, I recently made a 300-mile trip from a town north of Houston to home. I thought I'd listen to episode 181 as I took off at 4:15 a.m. I traveled south on Interstate 69 to the Beltway West and south around Houston in order to pick up Interstate 10 West towards San Antonio. As the city traffic was not bad in the early hours, I was totally engrossed in learning about stellar nucleosynthesis. Everything was fine until Russ commented on dating protocols. That's when the Watcher chimed in on the problem with relative dating, ending up in the shallow end of the gene pool.
That's right.
As he usually has some valuable insider info to share and his delivery was stone cold serious, it took me a second to get it. And then I spewed my coffee all over the dash. Once I recovered, I looked up at the next exit sign and it was for I-69 South. I was now crossing the same highway I got on the Beltway on from the north side of town. I totally missed the 10 West exit and I blame it all on the Watcher. I would have been home 25 minutes sooner, damn it. Other than that, great show. Snake Stash. Yeah, I remember that. Watcher's like, yeah. The other problem with relative dating is it really shallows the gene pool out.
That's right.
God.
Fastest 2 hours in podcasting, Stash. It went all the way around the loop. Didn't even know it.
Let's see. This one is from...
And Watcher, you know, you're supposed to type those jokes in so that I get to deliver them.
Well, on that particular episode, because I was doing the presentation, we told him to just pop in.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, I forgive you for that one.
All right, this one's from, I don't know how to say it, Camaro? Shamir's malnourished cousin located in the Philippines. Says, I may or may not have poured concrete mixed with glass into my local bird nest. While I waited for the Shamir, I did some internet searching on the legend. I stumbled across a newly discovered worm-like creature in a YouTube video that was discovered burrowing into river sandstone in the Philippines. The scientific name is Lithoredo abatanica, but I like to call it the Rockshman Shamir for short. The video explains they don't understand how it gets nutrients, but after looking up giant shipworms, it is said to get nutrients from bacteria growing inside of it. Now I just need to get a blender and a paintbrush. Mystery solved. Next mystery.
Man, wouldn't that be crazy? Like, you really go out and put a piece of glass over a bird's nest with eggs in it or with young?
Yeah.
And it
drops
comes back and just like just shatters the glass somehow.
Yeah.
I mean, I read these stories and I'm thinking, oh, the symbolism. Wow, what might it mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Never having tried exactly what they asked
Right.
or tell you to try.
Yeah, we had plenty
I
of
don't know if I
people.
could do it.
We had plenty of people responding saying that it was alchemical symbols, you know, that the whole story is basically transmitting alchemical knowledge.
Maybe someday
Yeah.
we'll figure it out.
And this one's from David.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah. This is Homo correctus minoricus and major metaphysics, prisms and multiple worlds. Hello, Russ and Kyle. You may have already gotten some feedback on this topic. In a recent episode, you wondered at the performance of prisms and stated that it is mysterious because the light is going in at the same speed. This minor error in apprehension is exactly why it remained mysterious to you. I am not a physicist, but as far as I understand prisms, when the light enters glass, the waves do change speed a tiny bit.
Right.
Yes, that's right. This is how the refraction works. Waves in different media propagate at different speeds. Sound goes faster underwater, etc. This is why E = mc squared states light in a vacuum. So, if the light enters or exits glass straight on, nothing much happens. But when it hits it at an angle, because part of the wavefront slows down early due to the conservation of momentum, the beam turns to one side. This is why your feet can look fat and wide in a bathtub when you sit down. The image is tilted. This is like a four-wheeled cart going from pavement to grass at an angle and turning because of it. Same momentum property. When this turning happens in white light, it is like an edge of a deck of cards being tilted, and the hidden frequencies get spread out and become visible and therefore get shown as color. Where all this starts to get weird is that philosophers, specifically one, Gottfried Leibniz, in his doctrine of pre-established harmony, which I feel is central to the newly emerging cultures of our historical time, stated that this conservation of momentum that you see in prisms and pendulums demonstrates the persistence of energy and spirit from one medium or world into another. Therefore, in metaphysics, he uses this idea to demonstrate that the strictly separated mind-body dualism of someone like Descartes, the mechanistic worldview held by most scurpy people, is likely to be wrong. Physics does not make such strict separations in this world. Why would spirit? And to tie all this to things ancient, it is possible that one could see the false doors of old kingdom tombs as prisms for the spirit. But instead of separating the white light, the colors of our body and soul get reunited.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
And this is what is indicated by the Ka, body double soul, and the Ba, the oversoul, becoming united in the Ak, the horizon or effective union. This spiritual unification is, by the way, what the name of Akhenaten means, effective for the Aten, and it is a really tone-deaf effective for the Aten is a really tone-deaf translation. So, minor correction indeed, but a topic that opens up a whole vista for us to ascend beyond our animal selves. Thanks for the show as always, and the things I claim to be working on, I am indeed. Firmer news will be happening in about 2 months. All the best, David.
Awesome, man. Yeah, that's right. I thought it sped up, but I guess you're saying it slows down.
He's saying it slows down. Yeah, I think
Okay.
I thought it sped up in glass or in water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's only when it's at an angle because of the curve of the wavefront.
Yeah.
How do particles do this?
So yeah, we do know that, but maybe we what did we say it wrong? Did we
Probably.
came across in the podcast?
Most likely.
Yeah, most likely, sir.
But yeah, that is. I don't know. I love the symmetry of the idea of the spirit prism bringing them together. That's cool because that does not work with light.
Yeah.
I don't think. I mean, with light, if you have all the separated colors and you shine them together, it becomes white light.
Yeah.
They just merge, or the interference patterns of them
Yeah.
create the white light.
Yeah, that's how old school projectors worked.
Yeah.
It had 3 different
Yeah.
bulbs. And it could make a white light by shining all of them, right?
But it's interesting, the idea of the spirit doing the same type of thing, but the prism works the other way around.
Yeah.
Because it is
Yeah.
It
the
does-
false
is-
door is a prism for the soul.
That's cool.
Yeah.
bringing them together as opposed to scattering them. Yeah, I do wonder why. Like, it's interesting to me that the wavelengths are organized by the prism.
Yeah. Yeah, that is weird.
Because you would think that the speed change, I guess, I don't know. I'm trying to wrap my brain around why the frequencies, because all the frequencies are traveling at the same speed, right? It's a complex wave.
Yeah.
So it comes in, it hits the medium, it at an angle, and it changes direction. Like so if you're looking at a two-dimensional graph, you have this wavefront, this curved wavefront coming in. The bottom of the wave hits the new medium first, and it speeds up or slows down, whichever one it is. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so it starts moving at one speed, and as the wave continues to enter the medium, you've got wait a minute. Yeah, it has to speed up. It has to speed up because the bottom of the wave starts moving faster.
Yeah.
And then the next part of the wave comes in, and that's what extends it out in front of you if you're looking down at the surface of the water.
Yeah.
I think it's speeding up.
Yeah, I think so too.
And that's why your hand, if you put your hand down in the water at an angle, it looks like your hand is flatter than it actually is.
Yeah. So Homo erectus minoricus on the Homo erectus.
That's maybe. I don't know. I could be wrong again. I could be doubling down on the wrongness. But the point is
Has
that
happened before.
it's the point is that when you do this with water, like say the surface of water, and you put your hand in and you're looking at it at an angle, and you see your hand flatten out. It doesn't separate the colors,
yeah.
right? But with the prism, with the different angles,
Yeah, that's right.
you have a set of prisms or whatever, and you have all the different angles. That it does separate all the colors by frequency.
Yeah.
Or the rainbow, the crystal.
And doesn't a prism work? It has two angles plus the mirror on one side. That's what does it, right? It comes in, it hits one angle, gets changed, then it reflects off the inside surface of one part of the prism, and then comes back out the other angle.
Okay,
And then
probably just need to look into this.
Yeah,
more.
that complicated process results in this spread of color.
Okay,
It isn't a simple one-step thing. Three things happen.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
yeah.
That's why you have to use a prism.
That's probably what he was trying to explain to me. It's just, I need to look into it. It's just, it's one of those things. I'm just like, it's really weird how it divides it by frequency.
What's going on
It's
here?
all moving at the same speed. What's going on?
Yeah, what you meant is that even if it's changing the speed, how does that separate it by frequency?
Yeah, like you think of the rainbow in the sky, right?
Yeah.
You got all these crystals. How does it always organize those colors
Yeah,
in the same way?
right.
When all of the light, no matter what frequency it is traveling at the same speed and all being affected by the individual crystals. I don't know.
The same
it's just
way.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
And the crystals you imagine in the atmosphere are just flipping around, but somehow they're organized. It organizes it in this way.
Yeah.
It's just interesting to me. I should look into it more. I have not. Forgive me.
But that's why rainbows are faint, or not faint, but they're translucent basically. Because a lot of the crystals are all flipping around randomly, but there's enough of them with the right angled faces facing in the right direction to make this translucent, and they're constantly changing. They're all flipping, but at any given moment, there's enough of them facing the right way to make that.
But the other part of the equation is that it's your perspective.
Yeah, you have to be in the right place, and the angles have to be in the right place relative to the source of light.
Yeah,
the
and
sun.
so you can be driving down the highway at 70 miles an hour, and it stays.
Yeah, because they're flipping around all over the place. That's what I'm saying. There's always enough of them facing in the right direction from your perspective to give you the view of the rainbow. That still doesn't tell you why it splits it up into the colors and why the purple's always on the bottom.
It's the same.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah.
It's very cool. Yeah, and so instinctively I'm like, that makes sense. But I don't know why, and I haven't really looked into it.
Yeah.
But there's again, like I go back to the symmetry thing. It's like, yeah, it's all about your perspective and the oncoming light and all of these things. And somehow in my brain, it's like, okay, it makes sense, but it's still curious. I need to look into it and see why.
Yeah.
And it's probably simple.
Simple-ish.
Ish.
Should we take a break? Did that thing run out? Did we flip it over?
No, I never did
Okay.
because it was late.
All right, so it's not actually break time. 2 minutes. Okay.
But hey, I'm pretty jealous of that awesome laser you got. But
yeah, the laser surveying system. Yeah.
that's the one I wanted. We got the optic one instead, but pretty jealous. Good luck out there.
Yeah. All right, this one's from Peter. It's called Saxewaman number 185. Snakes! First, I appreciate you reading my emails. It's great to hear your feedback. I want to suggest something that may sound a bit nuts, referring to the living rock cutouts that we see all over Peru and other places around the world. I think we are looking at negatives. Imagine a time in the distant past in a civilization that had machinery similar yet more advanced than we have today. Now imagine that civilization being inundated utterly and completely by a massive tidal wave or mudslide or impact ejecta, whatever devastating calamity you can imagine burying this civilization. Wouldn't mud that covers the technological equipment as we would think of cars or cranes or buildings solidify against that equipment and over millennia turn into rock? Were that to happen, the equipment, car, or crane or whatever would rot away, leaving the imprint in the rock similar to how we get a fossil. I don't know. I've been thinking about this, and I think, yeah, that would happen, but I'm not sure that's what we're looking at.
Not in granite.
Right. Granite wouldn't do it. Basalt wouldn't do it. I mean, unless it was lava that flowed onto it. Limestone.
Do we see, are there interesting basalt shapes that, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of the megalithic stuff like in Cusco is made out of basalt.
I know, but I mean, are there interesting shapes like formed into it?
Yeah.
I guess maybe I'm not sure what he's...
I think he's saying like, so the oldest stuff, these weird stair steps cut into the living rock.
Yeah.
He was wondering if those might be actually like fossil imprints of technology.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah, because the negative space, like in the open air, it looks like an upside down staircase. There was something there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh. But still, yeah. How do you form granite over something?
Yeah. Yeah, I think...
and then have that thing deteriorate after the
right.
granite solidified.
Yeah.
I don't know. I definitely see that in sedimentary rock.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that all the time with life forms, at least.
Yeah.
Not machinery.
Ghost
yet.
fossils, they call them.
Maybe there's machinery, but
yeah,
like a hammer.
Yeah.
Occasionally. But yeah, the fossils are basically,
a reverse
they're
imprint.
surrounded by the sediment, and then they're replaced by the
and
minerals.
in some cases the source of the fossil is completely gone, but there's this imprint left.
That's
a
true,
negative.
yeah.
That's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
So you'll see like the imprint of the shell, but it's the reverse. The shell itself is completely gone. The fossil itself is no longer there, and they call them ghost fossils.
Yep, could be hard to imagine how, but it's not any. I mean, I don't have any better ideas.
Yeah. Yep.
I guess the only other thing would be, well, they seem to also have an ability with incredibly hard stone that we lack today.
Yeah.
So if you can look at the walls that are obviously constructed, it's not hard to imagine that technology could be utilized to just cut the rock away straight out of the mountain.
Yeah. In weird ways.
Yeah.
Just however you wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he continues here. He says, this also ties into what I see as the true smoking gun, proving high technology in the ancient past. The cart ruts of Malta and many other places around the planet. I don't understand why cart ruts are not pointed out more often as what they are, prints of ancient technology, moving through the mud that then solidifies no different than a dinosaur footprint. So keep up the great work, guys, and I hope to meet up on one of your trips someday. From Peter. I agree, man. I think the cart ruts are... there's some weird things about them. We've discussed it quite often here on the podcast, and we've had intense discussions about them on the Discord. Like, I don't understand if they are vehicles, why they don't. There are certain characteristics that they should show in turns, for example. Some of them are so narrow in terms of like the width of the wheel, and then yet so deep that it implies that the wheel itself must be big, like an old school wagon wheel. For the axle to be,
the turns should be much wider.
Right. When it turns, the rut itself should be wider because the wheel's diameter is so wide. That's a
really great point. Yeah.
And they don't. And I don't understand that. And then so I've tried to think of like, well, could they have been sleds? Well, no, sleds do the same thing. You turn with a sled, and unless the sled thing itself is like real short, which like completely, removes the whole purpose of a sled in the first place. When it turns, it makes a much wider track. And if they were vehicles that were doing this somehow, like in some of the tracks that have a wider wheelbase, so the wheel itself was fatter, and the tracks aren't as deep, so the axle didn't have to be up so high, which implies that the wheel can have a smaller diameter, then you're still looking at what must be a two-wheeled vehicle because the wheel prints don't, if it was four wheels, the wheel prints should separate when they turn, even if it's all
Unless
wheel.
it was like a train where each wheel and axle was on its own pivot.
Yeah.
So a train car sits on top of...
But even those train cars, they have four wheels.
They have four axles.
Yeah.
I mean, they have four axles total, two axles on each truck, basically, that's holding the same car.
And each one of those trucks turns by itself.
Right, but
pivots,
if it was just a single axle on a truck,
yeah,
then you could follow the exact path.
If it was on a rail, like how would it do that?
Well, what I'm saying is that if you look at train rails, you don't have, when a train turns, there are not two sets of tracks, obviously.
Right.
They're following a guide.
Yeah.
So if there were two axles, each axle pivoted, then it could follow the same trail. Now, it wouldn't do it automatically on a flat surface.
Right. It would have to be.
But it would if it was being guided.
Yeah.
That's my only point.
Yeah.
Point done.
I've just tried.
In other words, the cart ruts were already there when these single pivoting axle vehicles went by.
Yeah.
I don't know what made the cart ruts. I just know what traveled in them after they were made. That's the type of vehicle you would have to have.
Yeah, there's all kinds of little details, and like that's what this show is about. This is why we're doing this stuff with Ben. You know, this is why we've done these book reports, is because it's these tiny details. You know, like, yeah, you can look at the cart ruts on Malta and you're like, okay, I just completely don't buy the story that these were carts dragging like one oxen cart going over the same track a million times until it made these deep ruts in limestone. I don't buy that.
But I get it. I know what it was. The tires were really low on air. So they were real fat at the bottom. That's why they didn't make bigger ruts when they made turns.
Oh, okay.
Because they were narrow, as any part that wasn't touching the ground was narrow.
Okay.
It's terrible. And so the rubber eventually wore these giant ruts in the rock. No, it doesn't work.
Yeah. But I agree that the cart ruts are an enigma. It's just hard to point at them as being evidence of technology when you can't even describe what kind of technology we're talking about. So,
yeah.
And
they go all over the place. In a lot of cases, there's not just one set. They're just crossing each other and doing all this crazy stuff.
Right.
It's like, okay.
Yeah.
So they took all these individual paths millions of times.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really strange.
It seemed like they were made in one pass.
Right.
Whatever it was.
Yeah.
Shamir.